When you're in an emergency, quick decisions are everything. If someone's heart stops, you have to jump into action, pushing on their chest to keep the oxygen flowing to their brain until someone shows up with a defibrillator to shock their heart back to life. You don't worry about a broken bone before you stop the bleeding. But here I was, sitting on my patio, utterly lost about what to do first. This was unfamiliar territory, and I felt like I'd been hit out of nowhere. As a critical care nurse, I've always prided myself on my ability to pick up on small changes in patients, those tiny cues that could mean the difference between life and death. I've saved lives countless times by noticing what others missed. Yet somehow, the slow collapse of my nearly 18-year marriage slipped right under my radar. And the truth? I didn't want to save it. No, I wanted to blow it up in the most painful way possible. Then, after a moment of clarity, I realized I didn't need any innocent bystanders getting caught in the crossfire. My wife and her lover? They were fair game. I took a swig of my beer and let my eyes wander across the backyard, weighing my next move. The lawn stretched out toward the bayou, dotted with a few trees here and there. My house, built in that classic Southern style with all the modern bells and whistles, had been a gift from my father and grandfather when I got engaged. The land itself had been in the family for generations, and the house had been constructed by our family business. I was the odd one out, though, choosing nursing over joining the construction company. Sure, it disappointed my father at first, but in the end, I did well enough to afford the little luxuries. Boats, fishing trips, vacations when time allowed. Family meant everything to me, and now that very thing was at risk. As I sat there, I glanced next door to my sister's identical house. I called her over. This wasn't something I could handle alone. "Isn't it a little early for a beer, Danny?" "It's only 2 in the afternoon," she said, eyeing the bottle in my hand. "I'm off for the weekend, and frankly, I'm in the mood," I replied, knowing she was used to my irregular work schedule. I kept the cooler full nearby, so I didn't have to keep running back inside. After I offered her one, she sat down, clearly sensing something was wrong. "So, what's the big emergency? You told me not to call anyone before talking to you." I took a breath and laid it out. "Emily's cheating on me," I said, my voice betraying how shaken I was. "Are you sure? I mean, maybe this is just some sick joke," she asked, clearly hoping I was wrong. I nodded. "There was a video attached, no mistaking it." "Who sent it?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "I don't know. The email was from someone called Pissed Off 999. All it said was, 'You should know your wife is cheating. Here's proof.'" Amanda's face turned red with anger. "That cheating piece of trash. Doesn't she realize you'll tear her and that guy apart? Do you know who he is?" I was about to answer when she cut me off. "If Mark ever cheated on me, I'd destroy him. How does Emily even have the time? She's at home most nights unless it's one of those bachelorette parties, and I'm always with her. She and Mark work together. He'd notice if she was having an affair." Suddenly, her eyes widened, and she gasped. "Oh no, no way." She stood up, looking like she'd just been sucker punched. "She's cheating with my husband, isn't she?" I nodded, standing up to comfort her as she began to cry. "I wanted to break it to you gently. I've had a couple of hours to process this, enough time to avoid doing something reckless." She broke down for a minute, but she quickly gathered herself. "Okay, what now? Do we wait for them to come home and confront them?" I shook my head. "No, we need to be smart about this. We'll act normal tonight, just like yesterday. Greet them with a kiss like nothing's wrong." Amanda stared at me like I was crazy. "Are you serious? We need a plan, Danny." "We will," I assured her. "Tomorrow we'll get legal advice. At least we know we haven't caught anything nasty," I said, trying to lighten the mood with a smirk. Amanda pointed at me, eyes wide. "Hell no, I didn't even think about that. You know I always joke about becoming famous, but I'm not about to become a reality TV train wreck." She finished her beer and tossed the can aside. I handed her another. "And just so we're clear, I'm not doing anything with Mark. I just started my period, so he's not getting any until we deal with this. Emily can have him for all I care. Just don't let the kids find out yet," I warned her. "They left for Mom and Dad's this morning. No arguments, no questions. They just got in Kevin's car and went." Kevin, my 17-year-old son, was as close to Amanda's kids as siblings. During the pandemic, the kids spent so much time together, they practically became inseparable. Mark had always been a good dad and uncle, involved in their lives, their school, and activities. I was the one who took them out camping, fishing, and taught them about the outdoors. As they got older, they learned how to fend for themselves out there, especially on those fishing trips where Mark used to come, but lately, he'd been letting the boys take the boat out without him. A few weeks back, I rearranged my schedule to get 6 days off, and I took the girls out in one boat, while the boys took another. We spent a week at the old Popo fish camp, catching crabs and fishing, strengthening what I thought were family bonds. Turns out, Emily and Mark had no interest in family unity. The idea of telling the kids what was going on made me sick. Family was everything to me, and shattering that bond would be the ultimate betrayal. I hate to say it, but we can't hide it from them forever, Amanda admitted. But we can buy ourselves some time. I'll make sure they don't sense anything's up for now. What do we do next? I asked, still grappling with everything. There's no way I'm forgiving or forgetting what Emily's done. I'm with you, she said. I've put up with a lot in life, but cheating? That's my line. I popped open another beer, leaning back in my chair. I just need to figure out how to make sure Emily doesn't walk away with everything. I can't afford to lose the house, the kids, and I definitely don't want to end up in jail over this. Amanda nodded. You're right. We need to hit them where it hurts the most, financially. I'm going after every penny I can get. Child support, alimony, all of it, Amanda said, her determination clear. I agreed. Mark made more money, so she had a better chance of bleeding him dry. Emily, on the other hand, could easily try to drag me down. Courts often favor the wife. I deal with trusts and wills in my job, Amanda said, so I know the law. Our houses are safe. Dad made sure we owned them before we got married, so neither Emily nor Mark can claim them. Emily might try to stay in your house until the kids are grown, but she can't take it. Didn't you and Emily sign a prenup? Yeah, Dad insisted, I replied. It says if either of us cheated, they'd only get 20% of joint assets and no alimony. Emily's father, a wealthy plastic surgeon, had pushed for it too, worried I'd go after his money. My dad made Amanda and Mark sign a similar agreement. Amanda frowned. That video of Mark and Emily, it's disturbing. Who filmed it? And how? There were at least 3 angles, I said, still trying to process it. The footage I got showed the same scene from multiple views. Neither of them seemed to know they were being filmed. Amanda demanded to see the video, so I showed it to her. Her face turned red as she watched. Holy crap, she whispered. They were laughing at how clueless we were. Her anger was palpable. Mark is done, but we need to find out who made this video. It can't come back to haunt us. I nodded in agreement. We should wait before doing anything public. Amanda sat in silence, lost in thought, until she started to sob. I hugged her, and for a moment, we both broke down, the weight of everything crashing over us. That evening, when Emily came home, I greeted her with a hug and a kiss, half expecting her to pull away, but she didn't. She kissed me back like nothing was wrong. Despite my anger boiling underneath, I told her dinner was ready. Amanda and I had ordered takeout. Neither of us wanted to cook. We had even joked about poisoning our spouses, though it was just a way to blow off steam. The next morning, I watched Emily get into Mark's car like it was a normal day. I called Amanda. How'd it go? I asked. No problems, she said. Planning and joking helped me keep my cool. Any idea where they're going tonight? Not yet, she replied. Amanda always needed to vent, but we had to stay focused. At 10 a.m., we met with one of Amanda's bosses, Ethan, who also happened to be a divorce lawyer and an old friend. We explained the situation, and he listened carefully. Do you have proof of infidelity? He asked. We do, Amanda confirmed, though we didn't show him the video yet. Good, Ethan said. Your prenups are solid. Danny, did you get a lawyer to review yours before signing? Yeah, my dad made sure of it, I replied. Amanda mentioned using the same document. Then you're in good shape, Ethan continued. The cheater only gets 20% of joint assets, savings, investments, that kind of thing. They can't touch personal accounts. Do either of you have any hidden money? We both shook our heads. What if Emily has hidden money? I asked. If she bought something behind your back, it's still common property, Ethan explained. But your houses are safe since they were gifted before marriage. As long as you've got proof of cheating, Emily only gets 20%. You can negotiate furniture and smaller items. If she wants anything, she'll have to pay to move it. Ethan grinned. These are the games we play. The important thing is to keep that video confidential. If it goes public, it could complicate things legally. You don't want a lawsuit. Amanda and I nodded, our earlier jokes about sharing the video with friends and family fading away. We couldn't afford to take any risks, especially with the kids. We decided to serve the divorce papers on Thursday at noon. I had suggested waiting until Friday afternoon to mess up Emily and Mark's weekend, but Ethan convinced us to stick with Thursday. It would still throw them off balance and save us legal fees. Initially, Amanda and I wanted to serve them in person to see their reactions, but Ethan advised against it. Instead, we decided to serve them at work, in front of their colleagues, to let the embarrassment sink in. After leaving Ethan's office, we went straight to the bank. We transferred money into new accounts under our names only, paid off and canceled joint credit cards, and opened new ones in just our names. Later, I checked my email and found 3 more videos of Emily and Mark. I thanked the anonymous sender and asked how they got the footage, stressing my concern about it going public. A part of me secretly wanted it to be leaked, but I knew we had to be careful. An hour later, I received an email with an address, 9203 Victoria Street, apartment 201. My curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to check it out. At the building, I managed to charm the woman at the front desk, implying the tenant was involved in something shady. She gave me all the information I needed. The apartment where Emily and Mark were caught belonged to their insurance company, with Mark's name on the lease. I wondered how their employer would react if they found out they were funding his affair. At 12:30, Emily called me, furious about the divorce papers. Calmly, I told her I knew she had found someone else and that I was letting her go. We had rehearsed this moment. Emily denied everything, accusing me of believing lies and threatening to take the kids, child support, and half of our assets. She even suggested Mark could move in with her and I could live with Amanda, imagining what they were doing in my house. Go ahead, get a lawyer, I said, barely holding back my anger. I felt torn between the heartbreak of my marriage ending and the rage of her denial. I hope Amanda didn't give away too much, I thought. By the way, the girls are packing your things, I added. Amanda told the boys to pack Mark's stuff too. Everything will be in front of the house this afternoon. We've changed the locks and got a restraining order, so you'll need to find somewhere else until the court decides. Emily started shouting, so I hung up. 10 minutes later, Amanda texted me, backyard. Bring your cooler, make sure it's full. That idiot Mark, Amanda began when I joined her with some beers. He tried blaming this on office gossip. Denied everything, of course. I told him to come get his stuff. Told him I had a loaded gun, too. Smart to have deputies here, I said, realizing how easily things could escalate. Mark might provoke me, and I'd end up in jail. Amanda nodded. I'm glad you talked to the kids earlier. I don't think I could have done it without breaking down. We had sat the kids down and explained what was happening. Strangely, they seemed to have expected it and immediately began packing Emily and Mark's things. The kids were surprisingly calm about the whole thing, though I wondered if they were just in shock. My phone beeped with a new email. Maybe it's from Pissed Off 999, I said, opening the message. It was an audio file, and when Amanda showed me how to play it, we both listened to Emily's voice. Can you believe Daniel and Amanda served us? She said. They must have found out somehow. Mark's response was chilling. Relax. They don't know anything. Someone probably gossiped. We'll deny everything and make them pay in the divorce. I know a good lawyer. After listening, Amanda and I sat in silence. Let them think we don't know much, I finally said. Mark mentioned they've been plotting something for a while, so we have to be cautious. Amanda, teary-eyed, agreed. I'm lucky courts favor women, but I can't stand the idea of Emily getting custody or living rent-free in your house until Rachel turns 18. Even with the prenup, it's just wrong. I hugged Amanda as she cried, assuring her we'd get through this. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. Divorce is just about damage control, minimizing the inevitable losses. The kids stayed quiet as we walked into the house. Rachel and Megan were stuffing Emily's things into bags. I asked them to take pictures of the luggage, planning to deduct its value from Emily's share of the assets. Next door, the boys were tossing Mark's clothes into garbage bags. I couldn't help but smirk as my son Danny shoved a $2,000 suit into a bag without a second thought. Emily texted me again, so I called Ethan. He arrived shortly with 2 sheriff's deputies to supervise the exchange. Emily and Mark showed up, bringing along Wyatt Parker, an old bully from my childhood. He was still the same smug jerk. "Hey, Daniel," Wyatt sneered. "I hear you've got trouble with your wife and son-in-law. No big deal, right? If I'd had a weapon, I might have used it right then, but I kept calm." "We're working things out, Wyatt," I said, though my hands were clenched into fists. "You don't really think Mark is with your wife, do you?" he taunted. "That's the story," I replied, trying to keep my cool as Ethan stepped in to defuse things. Inside the house, the kids followed Emily and Mark to ensure nothing went missing. Emily, realizing her credit card had been canceled, accused me of taking all the money. "I have the bank statements," I said. "You'll get what's yours." Her eyes narrowed. "Where's my jewelry?" This had been a point of contention for a while. Over the years, I'd bought Emily jewelry worth at least $25,000. Most of it was locked in my safe. I took photos of her ring and necklace for insurance. I wanted proof of ownership before things got nasty. Wyatt started to argue, but Ethan stepped in, suggesting an official appraisal. Emily reluctantly handed over the jewelry. "Where am I supposed to go, you jerk?" she snapped. I almost mentioned the love nest on Victoria Street, but stopped myself. Instead, I shrugged. My emotions had shifted. I was done caring where she went from here. Just days ago, I loved Emily, but now all I felt was cold indifference and anger. Emily and Mark left, with Wyatt trailing after them like a loyal thug. I wondered if they were heading to the apartment. Ethan, sensing my thoughts, grinned. "I hope so. We've got someone following them. If they go there, it'll help our negotiations." Instead, they headed to a Holiday Inn near their office. I found it oddly satisfying helping them move their belongings inside. All I could think about was backing up the evidence, audio, video, on more flash drives. I wasn't about to lose proof of their betrayal. Later, while Amanda and the girls were preparing dinner, my phone beeped with another email. Amanda followed me to the computer as we listened to the latest audio file. Wyatt's voice came through clearly. "Someone's probably following Daniel. Get a motel with 2 beds. Make sure both look used. Wet the towels. Ruffle the sheets. If someone checks, you can say you're saving money." Mark responded, sounding shaken. "My card got declined. Embarrassing. I'll call the credit card company and open a new account." Wyatt continued, "Daniel's watching the bank accounts. Don't hide too much, or you'll get caught. Offshore accounts are safer, and what they don't know about, they can't claim." Then Emily spoke up, "They'll find our Baton Rouge accounts." To which Mark replied with unsettling confidence, "Screw that. We'll open an account in the Caymans. Wet the shower. Make the room look used. I'll call the office and say we're off tomorrow." The file ended, leaving us both in stunned silence. Do they really have secret bank accounts? Amanda sighed. Where could the money be coming from? I felt uneasy. Emily and I had always checked our credit card statements monthly. We only kept $50 each week for travel expenses. I told the woman at the apartment that Mark was into pills and courtesans just to fish for info, but now I wondered, what if there was more to it? Were they hiding things from me all this time? Let's leave it for now, I said, pushing away the tension building inside me. We'll deal with it tomorrow. We joined the kids for dinner, trying to set aside the disturbing news about possible hidden accounts. The next morning, I went to Ethan's office. I had already arranged a jewelry appraisal and had estimates for my firearms from a local dealer. It was time to get all my assets in order. Amanda met me there after briefly going to work. Together, we listened to the latest audio files again. Ethan leaned back in his chair, intrigued. I'd love to know who's sending these files. Whoever's bugging Emily and Mark has some serious skills. No private investigator would have gotten this quickly, especially from a hotel room. I'm just glad we're getting it, I said, shaking my head. But it's odd. Someone's clearly watching them. We may need to hire our own investigator, Ethan suggested. If Emily and Mark have secret accounts, we'll need a judge's order to access their financials. But if you want this divorce finalized fast, we've got to move quickly. Next week, we'll meet with their lawyer, list the assets, and get before a judge. Louisiana's Napoleonic laws favor quick divorces, especially with clear evidence of cheating. Counseling won't be necessary. Once the judge rules, you'll wait 6 months, and it'll be done. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The end was in sight. Wyatt already called, demanding an extra 30% of the money you withdrew, Ethan added with a smirk. I reminded him the prenup only entitles Emily to 20% because she cheated. Watching him squirm was priceless. I'd love to play one of these recordings of him advising offshore accounts in court. The idea made me chuckle. That would be something. That weekend, I was supposed to work. ICU shifts were relentless, and my head was still spinning from everything going on at home. I needed a break. I spoke to Laura, the head nurse, trying to find a way out. What if I start coughing and need a COVID test? I half-joked, looking for any excuse to get out of my shift. Laura shook her head, smiling. You're ridiculous. But, yes, I can cover for you. You've got plenty of vacation days saved up. Thanks, I said, feeling a little relieved. How about I work this weekend and start my vacation Monday? Deal, she said, clearly grateful. Take all the time you need. Emily really did you wrong. That weekend, the ICU was busy, which was a welcome distraction. The chaos kept my mind off Emily, Mark, and the whole mess, at least for a little while. But I wasn't expecting who came next. Dr. Rivers, Emily's father. Hello, Dr. Rivers. I greeted him at the nurse's station, trying to stay professional. The staff was already whispering behind my back. What brings you to the ICU? Cut the crap, Daniel, he snapped. We need to talk. He motioned toward the head nurse's office, and I followed him in. He wasted no time. Emily called her mother, crying her eyes out. What's this about you kicking her out? Michael, Emily's been having an affair, I said flatly. She's cheating on me with my sister's husband. He stared at me for a moment, clearly trying to process what I just said. That's just office gossip, he retorted. She told us people at work have been talking because they commute and have lunch together. But that's it. Michael, it's not just gossip, I said, feeling my blood pressure rise. I have proof, video and audio files. It's not a rumor. His face changed, the anger slipping into shock. What are you going to do? He asked, his voice softer now. What can I do? I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. I'm trying to protect the kids, but I can't ignore this. Michael, be honest with me. What would you do if Emily had proof that I was the one cheating? He looked me square in the eye. I'd want your head on a platter. I'd help her bury you, he said, his voice breaking just a little. He was visibly torn between his loyalty to his daughter and the reality of what she'd done. And the kids? He asked quietly. How are they holding up? They're mostly talking to their cousins, I said. They seem okay, but I can tell they're angry with Emily. I told them to talk to her, but I'm not sure if they've done it yet. Michael sighed deeply, the weight of it all hanging heavy in the room. I'm not getting involved, he said finally. This is between you and Emily. I thought you were just overreacting to gossip, Michael said softly. My main concern is Kevin and Rachel. I nodded. That's my priority too. I'll help Emily with her physical needs, but if you have irrefutable proof, I accept it, Michael said, his voice heavy. Stay in touch. You're an honorable man. He walked out, shoulders slumped. Oddly, I felt more sympathy for him than for Emily. Wow, Amanda said when I got home. So, Michael knows his daughter isn't so innocent. We need to tell Mom and Dad soon. How about after your shift tomorrow? We don't want them mad at us for keeping them in the dark. I agreed, but the meeting with my parents wasn't pleasant. My father only asked if I had proof, and I assured him I did. Like Michael, he was more concerned about the kids than anything else. In our family, the children came first. Adults dealt with the consequences of their actions, but children were protected, even informed when necessary. I didn't hear anything new from my mysterious informant, which was fine. I already had 4 explicit videos of Emily and Mark, along with audio recordings proving their long-term affair. There was no doubt anymore. Emily had cheated and defrauded the family financially, too. The idea that she'd saved enough to plan a trip to the Cayman Islands enraged me. She wasn't just an adulterer, she was a thief. Ethan had started investigating their accounts using their social security numbers to ensure we could subpoena statements if necessary. The following Wednesday, we met to list our total assets. A court-appointed financial arbitrator was there to review everything. I provided my salary, while Emily handed over her pay stubs. She made about $5,000 a month, and my income fluctuated with overtime, but it evened out over the year. Ethan explained that even without the prenup and proof of infidelity, the similar incomes would minimize any alimony she could request. On Monday, the auditor requested tax returns for the past few years. I found mine in our desk at home, but Amanda had to get copies from her accountant. She was upset when she discovered Mark hadn't filed them with other documents. Mark earned about $80,000 compared to her $50,000, and Ethan reassured her that she'd likely get a significant maintenance payment in the divorce. Wyatt entered the conference room with a sullen Mark and a visibly angry Emily. I expected an apology, but she just glared at me in silence, clearly acting on Wyatt's advice. Mark tried to keep a neutral expression, but his discomfort was obvious. The court officer introduced himself and his assistant, who would be taking notes and keeping an electronic record of everything. "Let's get started," the officer said. "Your attorneys have forms for you to sign, confirming that today's statements are true and may be entered into evidence. Our goal is to list all assets and income for the judge to review. We won't discuss prenuptial agreements today." We moved quickly through the valuation of cars, firearms, the boat, and household goods. Even Emily's jewelry wasn't an issue. I'd had it appraised, and its value exceeded that of my truck and firearms combined. Wyatt, however, insisted the solar panels be considered separately, preparing a document on their value and depreciation. Ethan made a few notes and nodded in agreement. Next came the 401k accounts. I asked why they were included, thinking they might be excluded, but Ethan explained, "They count since you've been married over 10 years. But your accounts are similar in value, so it's not a major issue." Then we reviewed our checking and savings accounts. Ethan presented statements showing I had taken 80% of the funds, and Amanda had done the same with her joint accounts with Mark. The auditor nodded. "It's straightforward." Then came the bombshell. The court officer said, "There's a big discrepancy between Mrs. Davis's salary estimate and her tax returns for the past 2 years. Mark visibly tensed. "I estimated that each of you earned about $60,000 annually," I explained. "I multiplied her monthly salary by 12. The officer continued, "Yes, but Mrs. Davis reported $140,000 annually for the last 2 years. I was floored. "What the hell?" I muttered. The assistant frowned at me. "Didn't you look at your tax return?" he asked. I shook my head. Emily and Mark had a new accountant handle it electronically. I didn't dig into it, just checked the small refund we got. Emily turned purple. The officer explained, her salary includes $80,000 in bonuses each year. He glanced at Wyatt. And Mr. Thompson reported $110,000 in bonuses annually. Amanda, visibly stunned, asked how much extra that added up to. Net, about $80,000 per year, $160,000 total for both of them, the officer explained. I turned to Emily, my anger rising. "So where's the money, Emily? Is that why you went to the Cayman Islands last Friday, to hide it?" Emily snapped, "How did you find out? Are you following me?" She quickly composed herself, but it was too late. "No, I didn't have to," I said calmly. "You did it yourself. Remember when you insisted the kids install phone locator apps? Kevin and Rachel used it to track you when you didn't answer them on Friday. They saw you reappear near the coast. You were in the Caymans." Emily and Mark both looked stunned. "They even checked your office on Monday and saw you weren't home. You were in Baton Rouge, probably transferring money into new accounts," I added. Ethan stepped in. "Wyatt, we can subpoena those accounts. Hiding money offshore to avoid distributing assets is illegal, and your clients flew to the Caymans right after hiring you. Hiding assets like this is a felony." Emily began to cry. and even Mark looked pale with fear. Wyatt's face turned from white to red in seconds, realizing the situation had spiraled out of control. "I thought you were overreacting to gossip," Michael said softly. "My priority is to protect Kevin and Rachel." I nodded. "That's my priority too. I'll help Emily with her physical needs, but if you have irrefutable proof, I accept it," he added. "Stay in touch. You're an honorable man." He walked out, shoulders slumped. I felt more sympathy for him than for Emily. "Wow," Amanda said when I got home. "So, Michael knows his daughter isn't as innocent as she pretends. We need to tell Mom and Dad soon. Maybe tomorrow night after your shift? They shouldn't feel like we kept this from them." I agreed. The meeting wasn't easy. My father only asked if I had proof, and when I confirmed I did, he focused on the kids. In our family, children came first. Adults had to deal with the consequences, but the kids needed protection. I hadn't heard anything new from my mysterious source, but I didn't need more evidence. I had enough. 4 explicit videos of Emily and Mark, plus audio files. Emily hadn't just cheated. She'd defrauded the family. Ethan was already investigating their accounts. On Wednesday, we met to list our assets. A court-appointed arbitrator reviewed the documents. I provided my salary, and Emily handed over her pay stubs. She earned $5,000 a month, and my income varied with overtime. Ethan assured me that, with the prenup and proof of infidelity, alimony would be minimal. The following Monday, the auditor requested tax returns. I found ours at home, while Amanda retrieved hers from her accountant. She was frustrated that Mark hadn't filed them properly. Mark earned about $80,000 a year, compared to her $50,000. Ethan assured her she'd likely get a decent maintenance payment. Wyatt arrived with a sullen Mark and Emily, who glared at me but said nothing. The court officer introduced himself and explained the process. His assistant took notes as we went through the list of assets. Valuing cars, firearms, and household goods went quickly. Even Emily's jewelry wasn't an issue. I had it appraised, and its value exceeded that of my truck and firearms combined. Wyatt insisted the solar panels be reviewed separately, but Ethan handled it smoothly. When we got to the 401(k)s, I asked why they were included. Ethan explained that since we'd been married over 10 years, they counted, though the values were similar. Next, we reviewed the checking and savings accounts. Ethan presented statements showing I had taken 80% of the funds, and Amanda had done the same with her joint accounts with Mark. The auditor nodded. This looked straightforward. Then came a bombshell. "There's a discrepancy between Mrs. Davis's salary estimate and her tax returns," the officer said. Mark tensed up. I had estimated Emily's salary to be around $60,000 annually. The officer corrected me. For the past 2 years, Mrs. Davis reported $140,000 annually. I was stunned. What the hell? The officer added, her salary includes $80,000 in bonuses each year, and Mr. Thompson received $110,000 in bonuses. Amanda, shocked, asked, "How much extra is that?" "That's about $160,000 in bonuses," the officer said. I turned to Emily, furious. "Where's the money? Is that why you went to the Caymans?" Emily snapped, "How did you find out? Are you spying on me?" I smiled. "You did it yourself. You insisted the kids install phone locator apps. Kevin and Rachel tracked you when you didn't answer them. You disappeared, and they saw you reappear near the coast. You were in the Caymans." Emily and Mark looked stunned. I continued, "They checked your office on Monday. You weren't there, but in Baton Rouge, probably transferring money." Ethan stepped in. "Wyatt, we can subpoena those accounts. Hiding money offshore to avoid asset distribution is illegal, and your clients flew to the Caymans right after hiring you." Emily started to cry, and even Mark looked panicked. Wyatt turned pale, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control. When the hearing date came, all 5 children insisted on attending. I agreed since they were directly affected by the divorce. Martin Ellis ran the session semi-formally, sitting at the table with us. Ethan had prepared us, so we stood as the judge entered. He waved us down and set the tone quickly. "I handle family cases semi-formally. Be respectful, or I'll throw you out. Got it?" The kids stifled their laughter. The judge wasted no time. Normally, I treat sibling cases separately, but here, the evidence and parties are the same. Infidelity alone isn't grounds for divorce in Louisiana, but the prenuptial agreements affect property distribution. I need irrefutable proof of cheating. The judge reviewed the financials. My investigation shows Mrs. Davis and Mr. Thompson have Baton Rouge accounts totaling $120,000 and $160,000, transferred the Monday before the divorce petition was filed. The funds were split into 5 accounts belonging to their children: Kevin, Rachel, Daniel, Chris, and Megan. These transfers are legal under the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. I was shocked. The money had been given to the kids. Emily's earlier complaints about the missing funds now made sense. Why was she so upset if the money was safely with the children? The judge continued. The parents acted responsibly by giving the money to their children. Such deposits are non-refundable unless fraud is proven. Does anyone have proof of fraud? I was relieved. While I had hoped for my 80%, knowing the money was with the kids was satisfying. Emily and Mark looked shocked, suspecting we had outsmarted them. Martin Ellis then addressed custody. Rachel raised her hand and firmly stated she wanted to live with me because her mother had betrayed the family. Kevin quickly agreed, while the other 3 kids, Daniel, Chris, and Megan, expressed a preference to live with their mother. The judge smiled slightly, but reminded them that no infidelity had been proven yet. Rachel boldly discussed emancipation laws, explaining that she and Megan both had significant college funds. The judge nodded thoughtfully. I'll take your wishes into account when I make my ruling. Her brother Chris stood up and smiled. Me too. We could rent a nice place together. Kevin and Danny then joined in, saying that if they pooled their money, all 5 of them could live on their own. I glanced at the judge, who seemed amused. Let me guess, Martin Ellis said. If I don't go along with your wishes, you'll all petition for emancipation or leave home on your own? The kids nodded in unison. Sit down, the judge ordered. I'll consider your statements. Now, there's an allegation of infidelity that affects the prenuptial agreements and property distribution, so I'll need evidence. Ethan stood. Your Honor, I have photos of Marker Thompson and Emily Davis together. Wyatt quickly objected. Photos can be altered. I've got a picture of myself shaking hands with the president, made by my son as a joke. Counsel hasn't verified the source of this evidence. Martin Ellis turned to Ethan, then to me. Ethan nodded for me to speak. Your Honor, the evidence came from an anonymous source. I received several video and audio files. These screenshots are from the videos, and I have the full footage on a DVD and a thumb drive. I looked at Mark and Emily, who were visibly distressed. Their faces turned pale as the judge observed their reactions. Do I need to reproduce the file, or do both parties agree infidelity occurred? Wyatt hesitated, then asked for a moment to consult his clients. After a brief discussion, he returned. We agree with the plaintiff's claims. Then I'll proceed, Martin Ellis said. Since all parties agree infidelity occurred, the prenuptial agreements will be enforced. Daniel Davis and Amanda Thompson are awarded 80% of the community property. The judge suggested we work out the details of the distribution with our lawyers. He then moved on to custody. I grant Daniel Davis full custody of Kevin and Rachel Davis, and Amanda Thompson custody of Cynthia, Daniel, and David Thompson. The non-custodial parents will have full visitation rights. The divorce will be finalized in 6 months. Emily was ordered to pay me $1,000 a month, and Mark was required to pay Amanda $2,000 a month for the next 3 years. Each child would receive $500 a month until they turned 18. Ethan suggested we could appeal for more, but I decided against it, and Amanda followed my lead. After the hearing, I told the kids to go home and wait for me for a family meeting. Amanda and I went to the back of the courtroom, where my father was waiting. So, when did you figure it out, Dad? I asked. Amanda looked puzzled as I explained. It hit me when Rachel and Megan made comments about the video. Pissed Off 999 was a personality the kids invented. Dad smiled. I figured it out when I saw an old credit card bill. 2 months ago, Kevin and Danny asked me for my card, saying they were planning something special for your anniversary. They spent $500 at an electronics store, which turned out to be for spy devices. The kids spent $500 on bugs? I asked. Yes, they were expensive, apparently, Dad said. but I don't know how they got the video cameras. We headed home to find all 5 children waiting. They fell silent as we walked in. Let's sit down in the kitchen, I said. Amanda grabbed beers for Dad and me, while Kevin and Danny held out their hands, grinning. You might be old enough to be spies, but you're not old enough to drink, I said. They shrugged, knowing I wasn't really angry. Okay, who wants to start? Rachel spoke first. It all began when Megan and I stopped by Mom's office, and neither she nor Uncle Mark were there. This was around the time of Phase 2 of the COVID lockdown. We were hoping to get some money from them, but the receptionist said they had left long ago. It was past lunchtime, so we tracked them using the locator feature on our phones. Mom insisted we install it. It showed they were at a strange address, so we went to check it out, Rachel continued. It was an apartment building, and we saw Uncle Mark's car. We waited, and they came out holding hands, smiling. After that, we kept tracking them. For the next few days, they went back to the same place, staying for about an hour and a half each time, she explained. Sometimes, they even went there late at night. That's when we told the boys. Danny jumped in. We did some research online and found bugs you can install on cell phones. Once installed, they transmit all the sounds around the phone. It drains the battery faster, but it doesn't interfere with regular calls. We convinced Pop to let us use his credit card to buy them. Sorry we lied about it, pal, Kevin added. Installing the bugs and the app was easy, Danny continued. And that's how we got the audio. We took turns checking their phones and listening to conversations, Kevin explained. Whenever we heard something interesting, we recorded it and saved it to share later. That's why there's so much audio. But how did you get the video and figure out which apartment they were using? I asked, still in disbelief at how far they had gone. Rachel leaned forward. We noticed they both had a key marked 201. We knew that wasn't their office number, so Kevin copied Mom's key while she was sleeping. A few days later, we went into the apartment a couple of times and looked around to see what we could find. Kevin added, once we saw what was going on in there, we decided we needed video proof, not just audio. It wasn't enough to know. They needed to be caught. We bought cameras and a small transmitter, Chris chimed in, clearly excited by the tech side of things. They were motion sensitive, so they didn't use up too much battery, and we could hide the receiver under the couch. The camera sent the footage to a receiver we kept at Rachel's place. I nodded, taking it all in, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had done. So you installed cameras and captured Emily and Mark together? I asked carefully, not wanting to sound accusatory. These were still my kids and my nieces and nephews, and I didn't want to ruin our relationship. Still, the implications of what they had done were heavy. Yeah, Rachel said bluntly. We knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't just the cheating. It was how they'd come home to you and Aunt Sue like nothing had happened. They had clothes stashed in the apartment, workout gear, towels, and even Mom's makeup kit. We could see they were living this double life. They were betraying you, Aunt Sue, and all of us. They weren't just cheating on you, Megan added. They were cheating on our entire family. And the money? I asked, curious about the hidden accounts I had only recently learned about. Megan glanced at Kevin, then continued, the bank accounts were a separate issue. When we were snooping around the apartment, we found papers with instructions on how to access the accounts online. We knew it wasn't just normal banking stuff. It took a while to figure it out, but we realized they had secret accounts they were hiding from you and Aunt Sue. Kevin spoke up, taking control of the conversation. Once we knew they were hiding money, we got really angry. They were already lying to you, cheating on you, and now they were hiding money. We thought maybe they were doing something illegal like dealing pills or embezzling funds. Chris, who had been quiet, blushed. Actually, I was the one who said we shouldn't let Dad and Aunt Emily get away with this. I didn't like the idea of them keeping half the money if you guys got divorced. So, we decided to move the money into our own accounts. You moved the money into your accounts? I repeated, shocked but somehow impressed at their resourcefulness. How did you even do that? We had accounts set up by Pop, Chris explained. We thought it would be fair to take the money since it was our parents' money, technically. We were minors, and we figured we wouldn't get in serious trouble for moving it. Besides, they cheated us too. If we'd known about the 80-20 split in the prenup, we might not have done it, Rachel admitted, looking a bit regretful. But it actually worked out better this way. We had the money, and they couldn't use it against you. So then you started sending me the videos and audio files, I said, piecing it together. I looked around the table, noting their expressions. They didn't seem proud of what they had done, but there was a sense of justice in their eyes. That was the hardest part, Kevin said quietly. We were mad at Mom and Uncle Mark for what they were doing to all of us. We didn't want to hurt you or Aunt Sue, but we felt powerless. So, we sent you that first video, hoping you'd understand what was happening. Rachel continued. We kept hoping you'd visit Pop or talk to us directly. We knew you were upset, but we weren't sure how to tell you. Honestly, if you'd pulled out a weapon from the safe, we would have told you everything right then. Yeah, Kevin added. We knew you'd tell Aunt Sue, and we thought things would blow up. We figured moving the money was the least we could do. I looked over at Amanda, who had been silently listening, her eyes wide with amazement. I hope you kids never get mad at me like that, she joked. If you ever nail me like you did your mom and Mark, I'll chase you down, even if I'm in a walker. Everyone laughed, but there was a seriousness beneath the humor. These kids had acted out of love and anger, but they had done it in a way that left me both impressed and uneasy. Rachel looked at me and smiled. You don't have to worry about that, Dad. You've always had our back, and we'll always stick together. We Cajuns look out for each other. My dad, who had been quietly taking everything in, finally spoke. There's still something I don't get. You bought cell phone bugs with my credit card, but where did you get the money for the cameras? Kevin looked a little sheepish. We used your Visa card, Dad. But I don't have a Visa card, I replied. You do now, Kevin said, grinning. I applied for it and forged your signature. It has a $10,000 limit. Rachel added, we bring in the mail every day, so it was easy to hide. And the cameras? I asked, still trying to process it all. They cost about $500 each, Kevin explained. We got 5 of them because they shot full video with sound, had motion detectors, and came with hidden transmitters that sent everything to Rachel's computer. All in all, we spent $3,500, but we can return the cameras for a refund if we want. Amanda shook her head, smiling. And the email account? Pissed off $9.99? That was Danny's idea, Megan said, laughing. He thought it fit perfectly with how mad we were at Mom and Uncle Mark. So, the bugs are still active? I asked. Chris nodded eagerly. Yep. As long as their phone batteries are charged, we can hear everything. We even know where they are all the time thanks to the phone locator app Mom insisted we install. Thanks to their clever surveillance, Amanda and I had advanced notice of Emily and Mark's demands during the divorce proceedings. Emily was so eager to get her jewelry back that she gave me most of the cash and housewares. Amanda even shocked everyone when she jokingly suggested Emily and Mark walk around town with signs that read, "We cheated on our spouses." Wyatt's eyes nearly popped out at that one. He warned Emily and Mark that we could appeal their payments, so they caved to our demands. Somehow, 2 months after the hearing, Emily and Mark's insurance company found out that they had rented an apartment with company funds. Not only that, but Emily had been inflating premiums, and Mark had been securing big bonuses. Both were fired to avoid any public scandal. Despite everything, the videos never made it online. We joked about how we could have made them stars, but the kids didn't want the embarrassment, and we understood. Emily and Mark moved to New Orleans, where they now work for a small shipping company. They barely visit the kids and rarely call. Last I heard, they were struggling to keep up with child support and alimony. I wish them well, but maybe not.